Patrick Grady.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I think the fact that the Government has made this time available for scrutiny is welcome. And I want to start, as others have done, by thanking all of the care workers, the NHS staff, the support staff, the council staff who have responded so courageously to the pandemic in Glasgow North. And I particularly want to express my solidarity and best wishes to many of the new constituents in Glasgow North who have been affected by the outbreak at the University of Glasgow and have found themselves confined to their halls of residence. And I'm grateful to the Principal of the University, Professor Sir Anton Muscatelli, for taking time this morning to speak to myself and my MSP colleagues Bob Doris and Sandra White about the situation and the steps that the University is taking to support students who have found themselves in difficulty. And I know, Madam Deputy Speaker, you take a particular interest in the University of Glasgow and the well-being of its students there. The pandemic is going to bring flare-ups and flashpoints, and some of them will be easier to see than others. But as others have said, nobody's to blame for this. Catching the virus is not something wrong or in itself a breach of the regulations. It's not a question of blame, but there is a question of responsibility and where the duty of care lies. And that's what I want to sort of look at in my short contribution. It's particularly important in Glasgow North for people who are in the creative sector and who are self-employed. They are literally the heart and soul of our city, and creativity it means so many different things. It's the musicians, the artists, the sound and light engineers who support them, the pop-up shops, the artisan producers, the wedding dress makers, the events organisers and coordinators. These are individuals, self-employed, self-starters, and they've been left behind by this government. I thought the Tories were supposed to celebrate and support entrepreneurs, and instead they find themselves excluded. But it doesn't have to be that way. It comes back to this question of responsibility, and that was the point I was making to the Prime Minister last Wednesday. The costs and the consequences of COVID are unavoidable. Somebody has to meet them, and that somebody has to be, it can only be, the state, the government. And the government has already had to borrow an unimaginable amount of money. Governments around the world have had to do that, and independent Scotland would be able to do that. The question is how the money is used to the best effect. The government can either pay through job retention schemes, through income guarantees, through investment in preventative health care and support for people's mental well-being, or it can pay through long-term mass unemployment, through the social security system and the costs that come with that to the health service, to social work, to the police and all the rest. And that's why we have to see this moment as a chance to do things differently, a chance to set a different path. Whether that's a universal basic income in whatever shape or form it might take, whether it's prioritising green, sustainable alternatives to working practices, to transport, to service delivery. But the government's vision seems to be a return to the rat race, a return to trickle-down economics, that we'll know we've beaten the virus when things go back to the way they were before. They already want to take us back to some notion of empire with their Brexit obsession. And now they're harking back to the days of Thatcher, where mass unemployment is fine so long as some people get to be filthy rich. And don't think we're not wise to the idea that the disaster of a no-deal Brexit can be hidden behind the economic difficulties caused by the pandemic. That might suit some of the Tories, but it's not what people in Glasgow North want to see. They, and we in the SNP, want Build Back Better, not just to be a slogan, but a genuine direction of travel. Because in reality, we can't go back, and we won't go back. There's not going to be a light bulb moment, even in this chamber, where suddenly we stop washing our hands and we stop keeping our distance and we stop wearing masks and we all just pile back into offices instead of working from home. We are moving to a new kind of normal, a different way of how society and the economy will work in future. And if that direction doesn't come from Westminster, then people in Scotland will seek it and find it elsewhere. The virus won't be defeated by grandiose rhetoric about moonshots and world-beating apps. It will be defeated by everyone working together, by making careful judgments based on the best scientific advice, by admitting, as the Scottish Government and the First Minister have done from the start, that mistakes will be made and learning from them for the future. And ultimately, of course, the future for Scotland will be in Scotland's hands. It always is. Thank you.